FanDuel set the regular season win total for the Cowboys at 7.5, and they fell short. We'll talk about year one under Brian Schottenheimer next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Marcus Mosher, and joining me today is a special guest. You guys know him from the Cowboys Squad show. It is Glenn Stretch Smith. Landon's out. He'll be back tomorrow. So I thought, Stretch, that we could talk a little bit about the Cowboys in 2025. They had a projected win total of 7.5, and I know you and I went through this countless times over the summer thinking, could they maybe get over that win total? What are your thoughts now that we've seen the entire season for Brian Schottenheimer? Do you think he underperformed, or is this kind of rated right around where we thought he'd be?
I mean, I'll be honest. I thought they were a 7 or 8 win football team. I mean, I really did. Now, that's going into the season where you thought you were going to have you thought you were going to have a rolling ball of butcher knives, defensive end, and Parsons, and that didn't work. You didn't know how Javonte Williams was going to come out, a free agent situation. You didn't know how George Pickens was going to do. If I'd have told you in the beginning of the year, hey, Marcus, they're going to beat Philadelphia from 21 back, they're going to beat the Chiefs, they're going to tie Green Bay, you'd have jumped up and said 10 wins. I know you would have. I know how you operate. But it didn't happen. They did they win the games that we thought they were going to win, or lose the games they thought they were going to lose? No. But at the end of the day, if you thought this was better than a 500 football team, I think you probably were a little bit on the blue Kool-Aid, and that's okay. I drink that Kool-Aid too from time to time, but this team finished about where I thought they'd finish, and about where I think the smart money thought they'd finish.
What do you always tell me? They don't air condition that desert for nothing, right? Like this is what that Vegas and FanDuel projected this Cowboys team to be. They had a couple games that could have went in either direction, and I think that's the frustrating part here, Stretch, is that there are a couple games, whether it's that Green Bay game or the Detroit game or the Arizona game. If you just play better, we're talking about this team, maybe being a 9-10 win team and sneaking into the playoffs, but it didn't happen because they're just not that good of a football team right now. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be that way, but they weren't this year. They even as great as the offense was, they had games where they just did not play well, and the defense was awful all year. That's how you end up with a 7-9-1 football team.
511 points to give up on defense. I mean, what's that, an average of 30 point something a game? My math's not that good, but I mean, think about how hard it is to score 34, 35 points a game in an NFL game where you have a running clock. I mean, think about how hard that is to do. I mean, that is, and so, I'm not on here to kick anybody's rear end, but I mean, that is a classical show of complete ineptness on one side of the football. And what it caused you to do was put all the pressure on a first-year head coach who had zero room for error to make a bad call here, a bad decision there, a go for it here, a don't go, and so it trickled down throughout the football team. And I think at the end of the day, that's where we are with it. That we've got a really good offensive football team that's got a good young offensive line that's got, I think, really playmaking guys outside, an emerging big physical tight end and span forward that can go with the guy that you got, and you got depth across the offensive line. But I'm going to tell you, you got yourself where you have yourself a Ferrari on offense, you got yourself a mule on defense. And I don't know how, you're going to have to really go address that.
We'll get to that defense in just a second, but I want to focus on Schottenheimer. I know the expectations weren't super high going into this year. He had inherited a 7-10 win football team. They traded their best player 4 or 5 days before week 1. But part of me would be lying if I didn't feel a little bit left out. When you see guys like Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel and Liam Cohen from this cycle all have their teams in the playoffs. All of them are, I think, 3 seeds or better in their respective conferences. How do you judge Brian Schottenheimer after year 1?
Well, I think he did. I think he did an adequate job. I think he was a little bit hamstrung because I think the truth is they hired the defensive coordinator and some of the defensive staff before they decided to give him the head coaching job. I think that he was a little bit hamstrung with some personnel decisions, and we've talked about those multiple times. First and second round picks that absolutely didn't hit. And so it's hard to say, okay, well, I'm going to pin this on him. Ultimately, 7-9-1, that's never going to go away. Whenever you Google him up as a head coach, that's just going to come across that line. So it's written in Sharpie. There's no going away with that. And do I sit here and say he did a great job? No. Did he do a good job? Maybe. Did he do an okay job? I mean, I just think it's middle of the road, and I think that's where you are with it. I think it's middle of the road in the personnel, Marcus. I think it's middle in the road of the coaching. I think it's middle of the road with how they put the team together. Did they do some good things? Hell yeah. I mean, Pickens, Javonte Williams, Clowney. I mean, those are good pickups. But for those good pickups, now I can teeter-totter you the other side and tell you, how about Sam Williams? How about Mozzie Smith? How about Soonmaker? I mean, we can sit on and on, but it's where we are.
So let me ask you this before we move on. Again, we're 1 year in, and I know it's really hard to make any big judgments, but do you believe that Brian Schottenheimer is the right guy for the job? Because I don't dislike Schottenheimer. There's a lot of what he does that I think is going to be okay, and I think he is going to be somebody that is going to be a good head coach. But there is part of me that's really wishing the Cowboys would have done more work on Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen, or even someone like Mike Vrabel. Like, these are some, between Vrabel and these other guys, those are some really exciting hires. I just didn't feel that way about Schottenheimer when they hired him. And I feel better about him now, but not to the level that I would like to.
I mean, let me ask you, let's take Vrabel out of it. Let's take Ben Johnson out of it. Let's take Cohen out of it. And let's just stack up the personnel of Jacksonville, New England, and let's just look at those teams and say, are their players better than your players? Or is the 53 in Chicago, is it better than your 53?
If it is, it's not by much. Right?
Okay. How about New England?
No, I think New England's a little bit better on defense, but no, I think the Cowboys offense is.
What about Jacksonville?
Again, same thing. I've probably a little bit, but not significantly.
So where I'm going with this is this team is close. This team is close if they draft correctly on defense. They're close to being what you're talking about right there. So if that's the case, then I'm not real sure that I can give you a solid thumbs up or thumbs down on the job Schottenheimer did, because I think he was hamstrung with some really, really, borderline bad personnel decisions.
I'm with you. Let's talk about one of the bad decisions the Cowboys made this offseason, hiring Matt Eberflus. As of this recording, he's still the Cowboys defensive coordinator. We'll talk about if that's the case when the season kicks off in 2026 next. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor that you actually like and feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in network nearby with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so that you can choose someone that you truly connect with. I love that you can search for just a symptom and quickly find the right fit. And being able to choose in-person or video visits makes scheduling so much easier. So stop putting off doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc/LockedOnNFL. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. And thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate QB. Do you ever wish you could become a pro quarterback and be drafted number 1 overall by the Cowboys? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness and to help turn a falling franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 QB career mode game on the mobile app stores right now, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. Sign contracts, train, upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve your teammates. Give your GM some input, which we know ours could need. Play actual games in 2D and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. Ultimate QB is totally free, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. So just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimateqb.com, or search Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you guys. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, football legend, QB1, it's your legacy. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Everydayers, subscribe to the Everydayer Club for just $5 a month or $50 for the year. You can get ad-free episodes of the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys defense. Matt Eberflus, it's been a really rocky season for him. Again, he is still currently the defensive coordinator. Is it all his fault? I mean, I know the personnel is not great, but he says he doesn't regret anything that he did on that side of the ball. I got to believe he's lying, right?
I guess, is he, I don't know that I'd call it that. I might do like I would tell Liam, your little son, if he told me something, I'd say, don't you fib to me. I don't think it's a lie. I think it's I think it's a little fib. I think he's saying, I might not have done. Hey, you know what? I mean, he has what he believes in, and he being Matt Eberflus, and good for him. I mean, he has conviction about what he believes in. At the end of the day, I have a hard time watching the Cowboys, and you and I talk about this a lot. I have a hard time looking at a lot of the techniques that they play with. And so that's the concern for me, not if he called cover 6 a weak roll or 9 a strong roll or he wanted to play quarters, whatever the scenario is. I just didn't see a well-coached, technique sound defense, and that doesn't take a lot to do that. Let's take the personnel out of it. I don't give a rip if they're 10 soldiers, but they should at least play with the correct leverage, correct eyes, correct hands, correct feet. I mean, I watched Carson. It's 3rd and 19 yesterday, and they're playing cover 3, which means he's got the deep third. And the receiver comes off the ball and he pedals and widens like he should. And at 10 yards, now keep in mind, 3rd and 19, at 10 yards, he runs a 3-pump, an out and go. Carson, thinks it'd be a great idea. He's looking right at the quarterback. So it's not as if he's in man coverage. He thinks it's a great idea to break on the out. And the quarterback's just holding the football. Well, then the out goes and he runs right by him. The ball's underthrown. The receiver has to adjust. Boom, it's a PI. And you're thinking, wait a minute. Situational football is something we should practice every single day, understanding where you're at in the situation. So and for that to happen week 18 of the season, it's mind-numbing.
I don't think Matt Eberflus is an awful coach because there's no way he would have gotten this many jobs. He wouldn't become a head coach if he's an awful coach. I just think his defenses require a lot of talent. I think you need to have two guys on the edge that can really get upfield and get to the quarterback. I think you need guys in the secondary that have really good ball skills and that know how to tackle. And they just didn't have that this year. And I think the problem is for most coordinators, if you give them two awesome corners and two awesome edge rushers and a defensive tackle that can get up the field, they're going to be good on defense, right? But where the real defensive coordinators, like the really elite ones, they're able to overcome injuries. They're able to mask deficiencies. And that just was never the case with Eberflus at all this year. And what was one of the things that Jerry Jones talked about in that press conference after trading Micah Parsons is that they wanted to become better at stopping the run. And they thought hiring Eberflus and trading for Kenny Clark and trading for Quinnen Williams would do that. Stretch, they were worse this year at stopping the run than they were last year with Micah Parsons on the field. So that guy that you thought was an awful run defender, he's gone and your defense got worse at stopping the run. I would imagine, and I'm sure you feel the same, like he's not going to be the defensive coordinator in 2026. I think they're taking time just to fully review all of this. They're doing exit meetings, but this seems like a lock that they're going to move on.
I mean, I've been in this exact situation where they hadn't fired us offensively, but I knew, hey, you know what? You need to go, and they told us you need to go find yourself a job. Go find a job versus us, just whacking and cutting you, right? Go find yourself a job here. There's 6 current openings in the NFL. Guys are going to be moving, looking for jobs. And at the end of the day, they're moving on from Matt Eberflus. Now, the question is, how does whoever they hire decide to keep one or two of the assistants? Possibly. But,
well, and let me ask you this, Stretch, because
my gut feeling is they're gonna move on from all those guys, and whoever's the new defensive coordinator will be allowed to bring his own guys in.
We're not advocating for anybody to lose their job or anything like that. This is just the nature of the business. But do you think there is anybody on that defensive staff that deserves another look here that, should be a holdover to the next, defensive coordinator? Because we've talked about this before. I'm of the belief that I want my defensive coordinator to hire his own staff, guys that he's worked with before or knows that can get the job done. And I think when you're forcing some coaches on a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, that's when things can get a little bit messy. But is there anybody in your mind that, like, hey, they would be foolish to lose this one?
I mean, I think you go on and I wouldn't have a problem with whoever the coordinator is, talking to each one of them, right? And saying, hey, let's interview here. Here's what I want to do, and develop and see if there's anything there. I'm not for advocating firing anybody. I've been fired. I know what it's like, and it's a very humbling, very it'll knock you down. And so it's probably unfair for me to come in here and say, well, do I believe that Dave Borgonzi, or do I believe that White Cotton, or do I believe that whoever should be, I think it's got to be left up to the defensive coordinator, who you hire as the defensive coordinator. And then if he wants to talk to those guys, you talk to him. But, I'm also from the school that the defensive coordinator needs to bring his guys, because this is a defense got to be completely retooled.
All right, let's talk about some of the other coaches on this Cowboy staff after year one. Let's talk about Clayton Adams. Let's talk about Nick Sorensen. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel a little different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with the NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, whether it's boosts, bonuses, or a surprise. It's easy to check the weekly specials before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. All right, Stretch, let's talk about a couple other coaches before we head out. Klayton Adams, who the Cowboys hired to be the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive line coach with Arizona. I couldn't have been more thrilled. He's a first-year offensive coordinator. I know he's not calling plays, but I thought for the most part, the offensive line held up well. They had a lot of injuries on that unit. They were mixing guys in all year long. And this was one of the best offenses in the league. I don't know if we can fully judge him until he starts calling plays either in Dallas or somewhere else, but it's hard not to be excited about what they have in Klayton Adams.
No, I think he did some very imaginative things. I think he's done some things that were different than a lot of people have ever seen. I mean, I can remember early on in my career, I was kind of against taking a guy out of the core of the protection. For instance, the inside three, the center and the two guards, removing a guy out of that core in order to come help somewhere else. But defensive have got so good at bringing 3 week and at doing some things where you've got an uncovered guy in there. And what ends up happening is they outnumber you because, for instance, if you turn the protection one way and let's just say you're going to the right, so you're gonna rip the protection, and then they bring the tackle, they bring the end, and they bring just say the nickel from what is your offensive left side, but they only bring 2 to the front side where you turn the protection. Now you're outnumbered 1 there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you can't get in a situation where you're throwing hot, which means the ball's got to come out with them only bringing 5. I know it's hard to sit here and talk X's and O's, but a lot of times what he would do this year with some of those play actions is he would bring that guy that was uncovered and bring him out and protect in a 6 and 7 man protection so that you could max protect what Dak was doing. And I thought that's how they got to where they could throw a lot of those deep overs and a lot of those things that Pickens was having success doing. So, and we know CD's is really good at running that route as well. So my point is, from a run game standpoint, I thought they did some really good things. I thought you saw yesterday when Jaden Blue scored. I mean, they had angles to a 3-man side. And then from a pass protection standpoint, I saw a lot there. So I see why Shottenheimer went and targeted him to bring him in, because you saw, you got the fruits of what was that tree. So I do think he did a heck of a job. Now, you're going to say, well, how about giving Schottenheimer some credit? And if he had something to do with that, certainly you have to give him credit for that.
And I want to mention Junior Adams, and this is the guy, the Cowboys wide receiver coach, who maybe we had some concerns about coming from the college game to the NFL game. And I think he deserves some credit here, because George Pickens had a career year, maybe an all-pro caliber season. We'll see about that later this week. And someone like Ryan Flournoy, he took a big step forward in year 2. And I would even mention someone like Jalen Tolbert, whose numbers were down across the board. But whenever the Cowboys kind of relied upon him, he made some big plays, including a couple massive ones against Green Bay early in the year. I had some concerns about Junior Adams. Not anymore. I think he did a good job with the squad.
Yeah, you can only go by production and what you see out there and how guys ran routes. And certainly it felt like for a majority of the time they were on the same page with the quarterback. And so that's all it is. It's just yinging and yanging and making sure that, we're all on the same page. So when you go into your room and your individual meeting room and you're running that meeting, what's being said to those receivers is the same thing that's what's being said to the quarterback. So, you can't take anything away from what they did offensively. This team played well enough offensively to compete for the NFC East Championship, and it was a shame that they got that. They never got that opportunity because on the offensive side they were good enough to do that.
Last one here before we sign off. Nick Sorensen, the Cowboys special teams coach. We were really concerned about losing Bones Fossil last offseason when they fired Mike McCarthy. They go out and hire Sorensen, who was a former defensive coordinator with the 49ers, who goes back to his roots as a special teams coach. And I think you really felt the loss of Bones this year because while it wasn't an awful unit, Brendan Aubrey had a really nice season. Brian Anger was fine. I think your return game was way worse with Turpin in both, in the kick game and the punt game. I thought the coverage units were noticeably worse. And this is another one, like if the Cowboys wanted to look elsewhere for a different guy, I wouldn't be opposed to it because I don't think that special teams unit was up to par more often than not.
No, you didn't get the production out of them. I think more than that was there were multiple games. I want to say, was it Denver where they let a tight end get like 150 yards of return yards, or was it Arizona?
It was Arizona, I think it was.
Arizona, yeah. I mean, just you can't have that type of brain fart. You can't do that. And so I thought that Bones did an unbelievable job. And he's a guy that went out and found Brandon Aubrey. I mean, I remember he was standing right on the field when we were about to play Birmingham, and he was Skip Holtz's kicker. And hey, he did a great job of uncovering talents in the same way that he found Turpin in the USFL. So there's it's not just coaching, Marcus. It's also being able to evaluate some of the guys that you want to play for you.
You bring Bones back. That Titans whole staff is probably going to be replaced. I think he's a free agent right now. Would you bring him back?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe he hadn't sold his house already. Maybe
there you go.
Maybe he's Airbnb in it.
I'm sure Jerry still has this number, right? Like I'm sure it's in that Rolodex.
OU 812. Give him a ring.
Do you think our listeners even know what a Rolodex is? Like I know we skew younger here on the podcast. It's all right. It's not a big deal. All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Check out the Everydayer Club. You're going to get ad-free episodes of this podcast for just $5 a month or $50 for the year. Follow Stretch on Twitter at StretchWFAA. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.